in doubt we trust. How does that resonate with you?
Well, I mean, you're speaking my language. Where's the move where I'm going to move my queen here to take on your pawn, and then we're going to have a global pandemic that kills all your pawns? Either you have the courage of the conviction to write the word. Everybody knows what you said.
Creative thought, motivation, that energy comes from those challenges, comes from doubt.
They've got to become doubt hunters and hunters of the doubt to try to go and find out where's the next opportunity for fixing and changing things. Like, nobody gets to decide whether my life is a success or a failure until I'm dead. And you know what? Then I don't care.
Good morning and welcome to IFSA's first Prosperity Session, hopefully the first of many. I'm very excited today to be joined by a legend, Mr. Richard Mulholland. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Ricky. It's rad to be chatting to you today.
So Richard, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. What did you study? Where do you come from?
Okay, so I come from Glasgow, Scotland. I moved here when I was 9 years old. I studied absolutely nothing. Basically, one guy did worse than me in school, and the person who did worse than him failed. So, glad you'd have me. I didn't tell you this beforehand, just in case. And I own a presentation company called Missing Link. We try help people. I believe that everything major in your life that happens at the other side of a presentation. And I want to make it better for people to have a better chance at the other side of that presentation to change their own life.
So Richard, Missing Link, the business that you started, what inspired you to start that business?
Absolute frustration. So very quickly, I used to work in rock and roll. I toured with rock bands like Iron Maiden and Def Leppard. But in South Africa, people don't go to concerts in winter, which is funny for me, because if you didn't go to concerts when the weather was bad coming from Scotland, there would never be a concert. But what happened was we'd all have to go out there and get work. And one of the easiest places to get work was in corporate. So I would go and I would say to the CEOs, I'd say, we're going to help you make your conference like a rock show, really get people excited. And they're all like, yes, we want some of that. And so I would get the lighting and the sound and the AV and the staging. And it didn't matter, because it didn't matter how much of a show you put on. If the CEO came up, stood on stage, and she was terrible, it was terrible. But if she was brilliant, it was brilliant. So it all came down to the presentation. I realized there was a cure for the wrong disease. And every now and then I'd watch these CEOs and executives that were just so good and would command an audience, and they didn't need any of the fancy things. And I thought, okay, there's a science to this. And so I quit my job and started Missing Link at 22, not because I loved presentations, but because I hated them enough to fix them. I was driven by the frustration and the knowledge that there had to be a better way of doing this.
So basically taking a problem, a challenge that was visible or not visible to other people, and then providing a basic solution and bringing that to the forefront.
Yeah, for sure. Look, entrepreneurs, we're fueled by doubt, by other people's doubt. That's where the opportunity exists. So for me, an entrepreneur fixes a problem or fills a gap. If you can have people start businesses based on things they love. I love board games. But if I started a board game store, it's a tricky place to get a market, because it works. I love it because it works. And so if it works, there is a market saturation, so it becomes tricky. If you find something that doesn't work, you work under the assumption that it wouldn't work for other people as well, and therefore there is a need, and in that need is opportunity.
How do you take that forth? Where do you invest when it comes to your cash?
It was definitely one of the biggest mistakes I made earlier in my career. Is I thought that investing in myself was enough, but it was not a good idea. If I could go back in time and change anything, I would have started investing earlier. The truth is, I try to diversify as much as possible because of my lack of knowledge in this space. So I invest in other entrepreneurs that I believe in, that I see that are onto something. I invest in some big ticket items. I invest in some private equity. I invest in some property, and then again I take a couple of swingers as well.
Yeah, obviously that's the way that you have to go. And my experience with your type of business and how you bring everything forth, investing in your own business or in businesses similar is sometimes a better yield or a higher return than just your normal run-of-the-mill vanilla type of investment classes.
Yeah, so when I started, my belief was that any profit that I had in the business, if I could invest it back into the business, that would be the best investment I made. But then I was investing in a CEO, which was me. Now, if I had to choose, if I had to line myself up next to, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates at the time, or whoever the case may be, and say, who would I rather invest in? For some reason, I always picked myself, which was technically not a great strategy. And I think you need to back yourself enough, but hedging on other CEOs' expertise is a good idea too. And so for me, I started investing, I think too late, but not too late, in other businesses as well. So I invest partially definitely back into the business, and funny enough, that is not because I want to make more money. That is because I believe in our business and I want to scale our impact. So we have to invest to scale our impact. The place where I plan on making money actually is my other investments. My purpose and my passion and the paying of our salaries and my day-to-day life will come from my business. But for me, my future, my nest egg is coming from my investments.
So, in your opinion, it's the paying of the monthly bills, the bread and butter, is where the passion is. The investments, the long-term stuff, that's where you create the wealth and the value.
Absolutely. I've never yet. Let me just think about this. I did one recently. I very, very rarely sell anything. I kind of set it and forget it. Is my mindset there. So I understand that the market's going to go up and down and it's going to come back to a mean. And so I leave this in the hands of professionals who know what they're doing. I take my chances and I stay in for the long haul until I'm advised or told to do otherwise. But my day-to-day business, my investment, that's where I have fun. That's where I wake up in the morning and speak to people I love about changing the world the way we want to change it. And so investing in that is actually just investing in our purpose or our vision for the world of what we want it to be. And so that's super easy. It doesn't have to yield the returns because of these other aspects of my life where I have investments where I know that I can yield those returns.
Richard, the feeling that I'm getting is that from word go, starting off frustrated, starting off the business, taking an opportunity, investing in your own business, starting up, growing that business, there's a point of doubt on each of those points that I mentioned just now. Is that something coming to the forefront a little bit more lately?
No, because it was consistently there. All opportunity exists in doubt. If there was no doubt, if there was certainty, you're too late. Right? Anything certain. I did an investment a few years ago, so I eat a plant-based diet. They launched Beyond Burger. Biggest IPO in 25 years in the US. I was like, oh, this is amazing. Everyone's making, it went gangbusters from like $50 to $200. I was like, this is a surefire thing. So I invested. A week later, they allowed the founders to benefit, so they let them sell off some shares at $50 less. The next day, the market went down $50, and it's been my biggest loss to date. And that was because instead of taking a go when there was doubt, because in doubt there's opportunity, in the shadows, that's where it lives. Instead of investing at that point where there was some doubt that was there, I waited until it was surefire. I was too late for the market. If you wait for certainty, you're missing most of the opportunity, is my belief.
That's amazing. That's amazing, because that takes the doubt as a motivator on how to change one's situation, even if it's a macro or within your own control. It's changing that into prosperity, making it work for you in that specific sense.
Completely. But what other motivator is there than doubt? Like how if you're sitting there at home on your toilet going through TikTok videos, how big a problem do you have? That's why I think Africa is such an amazing place for innovation, because there's work to be done, right? Because there's doubt and there's things and there's stuff that we have to fix. It's a beautiful place to be in that regard. Like, we need to become fueled by these doubts. We need to understand that doubt means there's a problem. And again, doubt for me is the God particle of curiosity. And my friend Nick Haralambous, he's built his entire thought process around the idea of curiosity being the catalyst for everything meaningful. And I fundamentally believe that. And I believe that curiosity comes out of doubt. You look at something, you're like, come on. And then some people they choose not to go to doubt. They choose to skip doubt and go to disbelief. That can't be true. No, I refuse. And then they research things that apply to that bias. So what they're trying to do is they try to only look for information that plays to their bias. I look and think, you're having a go, okay? I don't believe you. And then I look at it and say, well, let me try and figure this out a little bit. And the doubt fuels my curiosity, and my curiosity fuels my knowledge, and then I'm able to make an opinion.
That's awesome. That's basically the process that you would go through if you see an opportunity or have a doubt around a certain aspect or something happening in the market or what's happening globally. That's basically the process that you go through, is identifying that is intriguing. You build up some doubt, and then you do the work to basically help you overcome the doubt, instead of just pushing against it and trying to find reasons not to believe.
Yeah, on my arm is tattooed, reclaim yourself, question everything. And I think that the only way we can reclaim ourselves in any situation is to start and question the biases we have internally. So why was my knee-jerk reaction no, that is wrong? Why do I look at something and think, no, there's nothing there, that doesn't make sense to me? What biases do I have that makes me do that? And so I have to start exploring that, and then I've got to work out the purpose of arguments as well. So I'm a presentation guy, that's my field. Everything that we do, we have these modern takes and new systems and ways of explaining it, but it's all based on Aristotle's classical rhetoric. And rhetoric is about the idea of argument. So if you and I were to argue right now, the world would think that's you and I having a fight. I don't see it that way. If you and I were to argue about something, it's two people with opposing opinions trying to reach a new truth that we can both agree upon. So we're trying to solve for the future. If we argue about something in the past, we're trying to assign blame. That's uninteresting. If we argue about something in the future, we're trying to figure out, okay, how does this look? Like, what's going on? So I love the sparring of argument, but in order to do that, it's very important that I understand where you come from. Most people don't attempt to do that. So they take the doubt, they move to disbelief, and then they try to just fuel their disbelief. They're actually not really interested in your say on this. And I think it's very, very unhelpful and makes them bad at progressing argument.
So you liking board games, I take it chess was one of those games.
I loved chess when I was younger. I rarely play it now. I play slightly more modern games, not because I don't think chess is brilliant, but because I think chess is always won by the better player.
Which is the games in general that happens.
A lot of games, for sure, there could be better things, players who are better, but I like to play, that's why I actually like learning new games and playing new games, because I like the idea that all of us could sit down, you, me, the team, we could sit down, play a new game, learn it, and I also love a degree of randomness in a game, because life is random. The idea, a lot of people will say to me, but chess is great because there's no randomness. But what are you learning from that? Because where's the move where I'm going to move my queen here to take on your pawn, and then we're going to have a global pandemic that kills all your pawns, and then how do you move? And in chess, you say, no, well, I'm calling foul on that because you can't call a global pandemic. And I say, yes, but I train my brain to work on the idea that something would happen that would break the rules and would change the way the game happens. So I like a game that has an event deck, even though it's maybe a bit of a lazy design decision. But I like the idea of something where a degree of randomness can come in and force you to think, okay, the state has changed, how do we act? Because again, the moment the dice roll doesn't go where you want, this is that doubt that creeps in that starts to play, and you can say, okay, cool, well now we've got to rethink what we're doing.
That talks to me on a whole other level you will not believe. In our business, IFSA Private Equity, we've got a saying that in doubt we trust. In your long-standing career as an entrepreneur, please share some insight in that specific topic. How does that resonate with you?
Well, I mean, you're speaking my language. So I love that idea. I love the idea of a doubt we trust, because I think that is really what we should be trusting in. And I can't think of anything that I've done of significance that didn't stem from a position of doubt at all. The difference is that some people they kind of jump into that pool of doubt, and then they see that as a negative place. I've always seen doubt as a positive place. In fact, one of my biggest challenges is when we're on the okay plateau. When you're sitting in your business and you're looking around and you think, everything's working so well. Life is good. This feels great. It's a nice comfy chair. That's when I get antsy, and that's when I get worried. First of all, it's also when I get bored. I find business relatively boring. I find the operational aspect of my business boring. And in fact, one of the biggest doubts I've had in my career was the doubt that I had any idea about how to run a company.
The doubt pushes you to ask the questions. And even in that stage, in my opinion, the business is not growing. It's not doing what it should. You should be uncomfortable and you should be doubting what's going on. And that's what you should trust in, is that specific gut feeling.
I know what our business's victory condition is. I know what we're trying to achieve. I know what we want to get towards. And our job is simply, whenever anything jumps in front of us that brings in that doubt, that's the position in which we turn around and we say, okay, well, how do we have to rejig ourselves so we're still pointing in the same direction that we wanted to go, that strategic direction we wanted to get at? I waste very little time in my life trying to consider what could happen in the future. A lot of my friends are futurists. They are speakers who are futurists. I really don't hold, for me, any value in that. It's just not worth overthinking about. It's worth being aware of what could happen, understanding things, but it's worth, for me, I don't like being a first mover. I like being the fastest fixer. I want infrastructure inversion. I don't want to be the one who runs the marathon. I want to be the one who stands at the finish line and then does the sprint.
Richard, with this riveting conversation around your journey to this specific point, when did you realize that doubt can actually be turned into a positive and not this negative push that everybody keeps on thinking about?
Without saying names, I had a high school principal who once looked at me in the face and he turned around and said to me, "People like you, Mulholland, people like you make me sick. You will never achieve anything." And it was the anger in which he said it to me, because I don't think I was a bad kid, but I think I was mischievous. And in fact, like, I always tried to be nice to my teachers, and but I was poke a bit of fun. But this guy, I cannot tell you how much of my early fuel, which probably not a good thing, right? Like, revenge is not I cannot tell you his doubt in me, his extreme, not even doubt to the form, he had no doubt actually at this point. His belief that I would not amount to anything was the fuel for almost everything that I did in the early stages of starting my business and my career. I was fueled by that. And I think there was at that point in my life, there was two ways I could have gone. I could have thought, well, this guy didn't believe in me and he felt that I couldn't do anything, and he's an adult in a position of influence, therefore he must be right. And I could have said, okay, well, that's my lot, and accepted it, and then lived my life in that state of doubt. Because I think doubt is empowering if you allow it to be. I think doubt can be crippling if that's what you choose to do. Because I went the other way. I went, well, no, I'm going to be fueled by that, and I want to prove this person wrong. And anytime there was doubt, and anytime that somebody didn't believe in me, I felt it was like my mission to prove them wrong. But I think before I over-glorify doubt, I think it's just critical that we understand that how you behave when you're inside that shadow of doubt will decide if you move to the darkness or if you move into the light. And for me, I've always chosen to go the other way. Part of me sometimes fantasizes, like, maybe he's going to look at me one day and be like, yes, I knew you, like a Miyagi type thing. It wasn't that. He was just an asshole. Yeah. I was going to tell a story about my entry to public speaking. That was 100% the truth, and I've honestly never verbalized it publicly that way. It's absolutely, just as you were asking me, I was like, it's that guy.
So what I'm hearing is the doubt isn't actually, in essence, it's how we react to it. If I'm not mistaken, what's your feeling?
Yeah, I guess that people see doubt as the end, but it's the means to the end. In any which way, if you get into a situation in which doubt exists, doubt is simply the place you find yourself. It was never supposed to be the end result. Some people just stay there too long. And I think if you understand that doubt is a position, and it can be both, like everything, it can be both an opportunity or a threat. And you have to decide which way you go. So, and I guess I'd be curious on where you guys see it then from an investment point of view. Because if we think about in doubt we trust, I guess there is the idea that doubt will always bring into things. But I'm kind of curious as to how you apply that to your thinking methodology. Where do you see the opportunity and the threat in doubt?
To be perfectly honest, I think it's by default not design that we have this take on in doubt we trust. To give a specific example, if we invest in a company we do all the hard work, we do the math, we make sure that everything runs like it should. But there is a doubt. Is this going to happen? Is the assumptions going to work out? Are the people? So there is a constant doubt in what the plan is and what we are seeing in front of us. And that just pushes us to ask the serious questions, go a little bit deeper, go a little bit further. And we pulled that straight through to our whole business. And I think that's what helped us become successful to this specific point. Keeps us nimble, keeps us on edge, and make sure that we challenge the norm.
So you're not questioning all the way until the certainty, then making your decision. You're still able to move within doubt. You're not. It doesn't stick you.
100%. I think doubt is the catalyst, like you said, that provokes these kinds of questions and thought processes to be creative. Can we do this better? It's not debilitating whatsoever, but it's more a motivational factor to get the best out of the situation, building prosperity.
Right, and that's, for me, why last year, and I don't want to belittle in any way that a pandemic happened and it was atrocious, and I understand it affected a lot of people's business, but just myself, for me, that was a great opportunity to look at our business and say, okay, well, we got to change this now. And thank goodness, because actually my business was on that plateau far too long. But the exciting parts of my business was when I started it and last year. We got to that point where everything was fine. But yeah, there's a problem, because everything that's magical happens when you solve problems. So if there's a lack of problems, there's no magic.
So creative juices, creative thought, motivation, that energy comes from those challenges, comes from doubt, comes from being uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, look, it comes back now. Nothing interesting happens in comfort. It's important to be comfortable at times, and if you spend your entire business putting out fires in a terrible place, it's not a good thing. I don't want to live in perpetual doubt. What I want to do is solve for certain things, and instead of being settling for that, move on to more interesting problems. In my first book, Legicide, it basically works under the premise that innovation doesn't happen when you start doing something new, it happens when you stop doing something old. And one of the biggest problems I think businesses have is that when you start a company, you start off trying to solve a problem. At some point, you solve that problem, so you figured it out. And then you go into the space where you actually make money, which is when you leverage the value of your solution. The biggest problem, I think, in businesses is that they believe in their prosperity is that solution will work for the future. And I don't think that's the case. I think at some point you got to go back into the space where you're like, okay, well, where can I find doubt again? Where can I solve new problems? Because that is where your growth will come from.
I agree 100%. A first-hand experience in businesses that we invest in. It's businesses that work, but the innovative entrepreneurial flair has just gone away. It's not there anymore. And we bring that catalyst and ask those questions again. And it's as if the same business, just out of a different mindset, just explodes because there's this passion and this doubt and this willingness to look at new ideas.
Totally, because entrepreneurship for me is a state. Right? I'm in a state of entrepreneurship when I'm solving a meaningful problem and turning that into a business. I leave entrepreneurship, and I know this isn't strictly true, but I leave that feeling of entrepreneurship when the business is running and I'm just trying to make it grow. At that point, I'm in management. And I think what you just described to me is that you enter a business, invest in a business, and allow them to be entrepreneurs again.
100%. That's exactly the essence of private equity. It's identifying the scenario, identifying the potential, nurturing the potential, putting that entrepreneurial flair, that doubt into the business, and when it's time to flatten off and it's time to operational, then we exit. So I'm very, very glad we touched on that specific point. Richard, thank you very, very much. That was really inspirational. I enjoyed talking to you thoroughly. Your take on doubt and using that as a motivator, how you chase down challenges. It is really, really motivational. I thank you very much. It's as if out of a creative point of view and myself out of an operational, more practical point of view when it comes to the nitty-gritties. As you as an independent thinker, what is your kind of routines and go-tos to get to that specific point?
Okay, first of all, you make me think of quite an interesting point, and I think something that cripples most people. A lot of people see businesses that do things in a creative space as being creative and everything is about this and no rules and things like this. I think that is one of the biggest problems that actually hamstrings you when you're in positions of doubt. One of our 9 things that we have at our business, a Missing Link, is being badass at the boring. The more time, once you have something figured out, and yes, by all means question it later, but once you have something figured out, mechanize it. Stop thinking about that thing and move on until you have to question it again. So I think processes and systems and routines and rituals are fundamentally important. I am the most routine human being that I've ever met. I have the same things, I eat the same things, I have systems for system's sake. But it's because I don't have to waste too much time thinking about a lot of things that have already been figured out, that when a position of doubt comes in, I'm able to apply all my creativity and all my thinking, fun thinking, into that space. So I really admire what you said there, and I think it's maybe something that people don't think about enough.
Richard, so I'm hearing processes and systems is a fundamental part of how you operate. Would you say it can be perceived that doubt actually is the next step in reaching that plateau?
Well, yeah, you see, it's a leapfrog game. So there was doubt, and then we solve for it. So we create process and systems, so we don't have to deal with that doubt anymore. So we can leave it. Yeah? And then we need to look for the next area of doubt, or else we get stuck there, right? You don't want to get stuck on that step. So it's very important for me that we do become badass at the boring, that we get steps in place, but then we got to go out and we got to be hunters again. You know, so they've got to become doubt hunters and hunters of the doubt to try to go and find out where's the next opportunity for fixing and changing things. And then we can fall in love in that space again. And then once we figure that out, we got to exit it and put those processes and systems in place. And every now and then, what is critical is that we go back and we just check the validity. That is the problem we solve for when we put this process in place still the same problem? And if the problem has evolved, then we've got to resolve for that or move on, or just let go of that altogether.
We find that synergy in between, and it actually works from both angles. Thank you very, very much for taking time and having this discussion. It was extremely, extremely inspirational.
Yeah, thank you. And for me too. And I think you're spot on. I think it's actually what's uninteresting is that we're looking at it from different angles. You know that thing about the what color is a beach ball? Oh, it's blue, red, and purple. No, it's yellow. What is interesting is that we're coming from the same place and heading towards the same place. We're coming from a position of doubt and the shadows, and we're trying to use that to head towards the light. And I think you need both that operational and creative juices to flow. What I love, though, is usually it's the creative people that want to build on doubt, and it's the operational people that want certainty. Finding a fellow entrepreneurial thinker that likes to be operational, but also understand the benefit of doubt is very nice for me. So thank you so much, and mutually, in doubt, we both trust.